Does your mind go blank in the middle of a conversation? Does your social anxiety roll unexpectedly, like clouds on a sunny day? Does the thought of going to a party cause you to quickly spiral? If you said yes to any of these questions, you've clicked on the right video. Because today, I'm going to share with you how I tamed my social anxiety and how I can dive into a conversation, whether it's big or small. Let's begin. Folks, I have a feeling that this is going to be a pretty lengthy video because today I'm going to be breaking down the art of conversation, according to my head. It's evident that many of us are struggling with talking to people. Just from the sheer amount of views that my previous video got on talking to people, a lot of us are struggling with this. So today I'm going to be sharing with you guys some things that have helped my mindset so that I'm more comfortable talking to anyone that I meet. So before we get into all the tips and tricks, we have to establish a good foundation first. I gotta talk about the golden mindset I have before I enter any conversation or any social activity that I do. To quote Eckhart Tolle, you are neither inferior nor superior to anyone. So in other words, no one is above you, no one is below you. Every person that you meet is on an equal playing field. And I know it's like something that we subconsciously do where we like size ourselves up with the people that we meet, but if we don't keep this in check, we're gonna either end up with an inferiority complex or a superiority complex. An inferiority complex is essentially when you feel like someone is better than you. And inferiority comes in all different types of flavors. It could be someone who's more successful than you, someone's older than you, someone who's more beautiful, more followers, more intelligent. When you feel less than and when you're feeling insecure and you're feeling intimidated, you are not allowing your true self to shine. You're not giving yourself a fair chance to have people get to know who you truly are. And a superiority complex is when you feel like you are better than or more elevated than someone. It's an assumption that just because you're further along a certain path in your life or more knowledgeable about a certain topic, you feel like you can just dominate someone. You can come off smug, arrogant, condescending. And again, you're not giving people a fair shot to get to know who you are because you have this inflated sense of self. And there's an argument to be made that those with a superiority complex are just struggling with their inferiority complex. It really is like a balancing act. So bottom line, recognize that no one is higher than you, no one is below you. And when you channel this energy, you give off grounded, calm, like I know myself energy, and ultimately that's the kind of vibes that I'm looking for, and that's the kind of vibes that people are drawn to. And one huge way that I'm able to be more attuned with myself is through therapy. This is also when I want to take a quick minute to thank BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. Therapy is the biggest contributor to the development of my self-growth, my confidence. I only see a net positive on going to therapy, whether you're going through like an objectively difficult time, or if you just want to take a beat to reflect on what's happening with your life. So BetterHelp connects you to a licensed professional therapist that's not only trained to listen, but to give unbiased advice. You can get started by going on my link, betterhelp.com/Jenn. There are over 4 million people who have spent and devoted time to getting to know themselves so much better. And I know getting started with anything can feel daunting, especially with therapy. You might be worrying about finding a therapist who's the right fit, or you're like intimidated with face-to-face interaction, but through BetterHelp, they can help find a good match for you. They have over 30,000 therapists that range from a broad expertise that might not be available in your area. Getting started is super simple. You just fill out a questionnaire that assesses your needs, and then you're matched with your therapist in 48 hours or less. I just love the accessibility of this because you get to schedule a time that works for you, and then you decide whether you want a video call, a phone call, or even text messaging. Like, it really caters to your comfort level. And of course, if you're not vibing with your therapist, BetterHelp allows you to switch to a new one at no additional cost. There's no need to worry about like insurance or whether someone's in your network or anything like that. It's just like funny how no one bats an eye when we spend like hours of our time devoted to our physical health, when it's just as important to carve out time focusing on our mental health. So if you're interested in trying therapy out for yourself, click the link in the description box or just go to betterhelp.com/Jenn. That's betterhelp.com/Jenn for 10% off your first month. Clicking that link helps support this channel and allows you to explore your inner mind with the help of a licensed therapist. Next up, let's go over some prep work. So this is kind of like a subconscious checklist that I have in my mind before I enter a conversation. First, I reflect on the things that are going on with my life, because chances are when you talk to someone, you're gonna receive the questions like, how are you? How was your week? What's been happening? What's new? And in the past, I would find myself like mildly irritated with these questions because I was like,
I hate small talk.
and sometimes my mind would just go blank. But then I realized that it was up to me to do some reflection beforehand so I had something to say. So before you go out, ask yourself these questions. How are you? Like, how are you really? What happened during the week? This is where my journal and my calendar come in so clutch, because it's like a running inventory of the things I did, the ideas that I had, the things that I learned. And so I select maybe 3 or 4 items on that list, and I just keep them stored in my mind. So that way I am not flustered when someone asks me just a very simple question. And these highlights can look like anything. It could be something that I learned in a podcast or a book. It could be like, did I come back from a trip? Did I add a new regimen to my life? Was there something amusing that happened this week? Or did I have an aha moment? And so yeah, I just gather these things so that way I am prepared. And if you struggle with this and you don't journal, I highly recommend just trying out the activity of morning pages. This is when you get a notebook, big or small, and you fill out 3 pages every day. It doesn't need to be in the morning. But ever since I started this practice during lockdown, it has really helped me retain the information and the events that are happening in my life. And in these pages, I would write about anything. It could be about my day, a conversation that I had, like a summary of an article that I read, like from news, health, science, tech, like anything. I just put it all on that page, and it just helps me create topics that I'm interested in. And the thing is, the more subjects that you are curious about, the more range of topics that you can discuss with other people. I feel like I should give like an example. So if someone asks me,
Hey Jen, how are you?
I'll be fairly honest. I'll be like, if I'm having a good week, I'll be like, oh, like I've been pretty good. Been grounded, stable, just been in a good season in my life. I think it's because I've been getting like a large amount of sleep. Like I really cleaned up my sleep hygiene routine. I read that book, Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, and it has just changed my life. Boom. Instantly, it gives the other person something to work with. You have sleeping, which is an activity that all of us do. You can ask about their sleeping routine, if they struggle, or if they also have read that book, or if they've read another book. So it's the small talk is really just the foreplay of conversation, and from that, it splinters off to a bunch of different topics. But honestly, sometimes I'll like have 3 or 4 highlights in my head and never bring them up because the conversation is just flowing naturally. This is just like a mechanism or a tool that I use to keep any anxious thoughts at bay because I know I'm prepared. So now I'm going to attempt on dissecting what conversation feels like for me. So when I'm in a conversation, I imagine myself as an ice picker, and I imagine the person that I'm speaking to as a mountain of snow. Each question I ask that person is like me ice picking off that mountain. Sometimes a little speck will come out or a chunk of snow will come out. And sometimes if I'm at a really good flow, then an avalanche comes. And the snow is the information that you receive. If someone is significant to me and I want to remember what they say, that's me essentially making an effort to gather the snow, aka the information that they told me. That requires me to remember what they said in my heart and my head. And as you collect more snow, it becomes into a small snowball. And those are your acquaintances. And as you pick and gather more snow, it gets bigger and bigger. And those larger snowballs, those are your friends. And as you continue to pick and roll the snowballs become very large. And the big ones, those are your best friends. I really like this analogy when it comes to like friendships and conversation because it shows like the fluidity of everything. And if you leave something a little bit too long, it can end up melting. And for some people, it can melt faster. Others, you're just in Antarctica and it does not want to melt. I just wanted to say that analogy to set the stage on talking to different categories of people. Let's begin with talking with strangers because oddly enough, I find this category the most exciting because you don't know anything about this person. They don't know anything about you. It's a fresh start. And so I am just excited to get on that mountain and see what comes out when I start picking. I also think I get this thrill because there's like this mysterious element. Like I truly believe that there is something to learn from everyone that we meet in our lives, and that really, really excites me. So when I enter a conversation, I think it's like my job to find something in common and find a connection. So when I want to talk to a stranger that I've never met, my go-to icebreaker is just to make an observation in the environment that we're currently in, because automatically that's something in common. So if we're at a bar, I'll be like, oh wow, this menu is pretty overwhelming. What'd you get? If I'm at a show, I love this song. Have you seen this band before? If they're wearing a cool accessory, I love your earrings. Are they vintage? And the easiest one is if you're at a party and you know someone mutual, then you say, oh, so how do you know Veronica? I can go on and on, but I feel like this icebreaker is honestly just to test the waters to see if there's a vibe or not. And the worst thing that can happen is they respond to you and they leave. And then you didn't lose anything anyway. Like you are probably never gonna see this person in your life. It's not like you lost someone like crucial in your life. Like you're exactly where you left off, and you got some more practice with your small talk. Because it's 100% a muscle. Talking to people is nothing but a muscle. The more you do it, the better at it you become. However, if the person is engaged and is amused, then that's when you can like start asking questions and start picking the mountain. Everything that they say is an opportunity for a new topic that can be splintered. Pro tip is to ask questions that you are genuinely curious about, because when you have that like authentic like buzz of like, oh, I really want to know, that enthusiasm permeates the energy and it's like infectious. So again, this is where like prep work and checking in with yourself is really important, because then you kind of already know some topics that you're into. Discovering topics that you're really interested in really helps. So then you kind of have like buckets of categories that you feel comfortable talking about. So for me, I love talking about love, relationships, film, food, restaurants, tech, music, shows, current affairs, memes, books, like, and the more pillars that you have, the easier it is to connect. So it's like doubtful that I'd bring up topics like quantum physics or sailing, because I don't know anything about them. But the thing is, I'm very open and eager for people to talk about whatever they want to talk about as well. Like for example, like I met someone's dad and he was like a rheumatologist. And so we're just talking about like health and like studies that he found and what his patients are like. But the thing is with these questions, you want it to have a good flow. Like if you ask a question, give it some like space, like see where it wanders, see where it splinters. Like just random questions like, what kind of animal would you be? Like it can feel forced and trite. I would always start off with broad strokes first. Like, how was your week? How was your day? If you're at a party, where are you coming from? Opens up the door for the next topic. So if I ask someone, how was your day? And they respond by saying,
oh, my day was good. Work was a little stressful. My commute is like pretty long.
oh, it was? Like, how long is your commute? An hour? So are you more of like a music or a podcast person while driving? And loop, you have an in. Suddenly you can talk about records they're listening to or podcasts they're listening to. Remember in conversation, if someone is not opening up, it is up to you to set the stage by opening up first. And of course, conversation is always a two-way street. So if they want to talk about crafting, for example, like I personally don't craft, but I will try and find something that I am curious about it. So I'll ask them, oh, like, how'd you get started with crafting? What's the last thing that you created? What's your process? How long does it take for you to complete something like that? I think what really helps conversation flow is when I am just giving them my full, complete focus. I'm not looking around at the party. I'm not trying to think about something wise or like come up with an obscure reference or whatever. Like I am truly just listening to them. And when I trust that my brain is gonna come up with an appropriate response, it usually does. Because when you're trying to think of the best thing to say, that's your perfectionist showing. Ultimately, no one really cares about like a quote from, I don't know, Kurt Vonnegut. People just want to feel heard and to be seen. So when I don't really know what to say when someone says something to me, the best thing I do is I just paraphrase what they said, and that's enough. Like it makes people feel like they've been heard. And ultimately, that's what many people want in a conversation. Trust me, like all of this is trial and error. And there have been a lot of conversations that I've been in where I literally just crashed and burned and just made a complete idiot out of myself. But the thing is, I didn't die. It just made me into a better conversationalist because I was like, maybe I just shouldn't say that. So now let's move on to acquaintances. I think that this category is arguably the most difficult because acquaintances are not strangers and they're not friends. And I used to get really in my head about certain acquaintances because I would forget everything that we talked about in the past. And it was really embarrassing. I was not collecting the snow, if you will. So let's say there's an acquaintance where I'm like, I don't remember anything about this person. It's fine. Just go back to the stranger's equation, start with the small talk, like pretend that it's just like a brand new mountain. When I believe that there's a fresh start, I am just inherently better at it because I feel like I get to start again. But chances are with most acquaintances, I know at least like 2 or 3 facts about them in my Rolodex of information. Is this person in a relationship? Is this person single? Is this person in school? Do they have any siblings? Each one of these questions can branch out into a different topic. So if they're in a relationship, ask them how their partner are doing. Like how did their partner and them meet? If they're single, ask them the last bad date they went on. If they're in school, ask them about a project that they're working on. If they have any siblings, ask them if they're like younger or older and if that like birthplace had any effect on their sense of development. I don't know. These are questions that I personally would like receiving, so that's why I ask them to other people. If you and an acquaintance are following each other on social media, that's also a really easy icebreaker because you can like look at their stories and ask them about that cafe they went to or that restaurant or how their trip was. This is all a form of ice picking and letting that snow fall. If a conversation continues to be clunky and it is not serving anyone, you have every right to leave. My favorite line is, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I'll see you in a bit. Chemistry is seriously a thing, not only in romantic relationships, but in friendships as well. If there is no chemistry, like friendship chemistry, then it's fine to acquaintance zone people. And it is fine if people acquaintance zone me. Acquaintances are great because it's so nice to see familiar faces in spaces and you might end up having like a cute conversation. Also, acquaintances are one of the best ways to meet more people because acquaintances and friends introduce you to strangers. So it's just like this cycle that keeps on going. And finally, we have the friend category. To be honest, I don't really have too much prepared on this section because friends are the ones where you have already done the hard work. Like you've already established a foundation, you've done a lot of ice picking, you know the mountain really well. You know if you pick here, chunks of snow will come out. You know if you pick there, just maybe a little will come out. But the fact is, with your friends, conversation should feel natural, intuitive, easy, ambling, fun, lively. Like this is why they're your friends. And each friend has like a different character profile. There are some friends where you just speak mostly about, I don't know, like light stuff, or there's like friends that you go to parties with, friends that you work out with, friends that you just spill all your guts with, friends that you just lay and do nothing with. And your best friends are the ones that tick a lot of those boxes. And all right, guys, I feel like the sun is totally cutting me off here, but I think it's a good time to wrap this video up. I hope watching this helped you get a little like less out of your head on talking to people. I hope you guys talk to at least 5 strangers in the next month, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.